All right, everybody. So, obviously, what you're going to see today is not going to be a normal show. Russell Brand and I taped this just as the news of Charlie was breaking. As, of course, everyone knows at this point, he has passed on. We did not know that at the time. There was a lot of conflicting reports, and we didn't want to speculate. So, you're going to see just our absolutely raw um, real-time emotion on this. This is a horrible episode for America, and I can only imagine what the repercussions are going to be because of it. So, hopefully, we weren't even sure what we were going to do. There was nothing scripted. This was just two friends talking about. Charlie was a friend of mine and a colleague, I would say, of Russell's that they had met a few times, and just talking it out in real time as something unbelievably horrific was unfolding. So I hope it offers you a little solace in this crazy time, and hopefully we'll be back to something with a little more humor and a little more our style next week. Okay. All right, Russell. I guess we're doing something a little different at the moment because literally 5 minutes before we just started this, we have heard that our friend Charlie Kirk has been shot at Utah Valley University. I saw the video. We're not going to show it. I don't think there's any need to show any pictures or anything. As of literally right this moment, we're taping this at, it's now 3:01 Eastern time on Wednesday. We don't have more info. One thing I saw on Twitter said he's at the hospital right now. I can only pray for my friend, and I'm sort of speechless. We just did a quick powwow for 60 seconds, whether we were going to even do this today. Sage obviously got married last week, which I was hoping to start the show with today because it was such an incredible celebration of love and everything that's right with the universe. But she couldn't make it because she's, post-wedding. I don't know what to say, man. I actually don't know what to say. I've done a million of these events with Charlie. I know him well. We've broken bread dozens and dozens of times. You've done events with him. We've all been part of this culture war thing. We all, to whatever extent, we're trying to make things a little bit better every now and again. And now I don't know if my friend is alive as we're doing this. This does not feel real.
Well, this is when we work in this space, we operate on the assumption that a lot of it's rhetoric. If you think about like the subjects that we sometimes choose, we know that we're using hot button subjects, hot takes, the turnover. You do 5 shows a week, I do 4 shows a week. We do a lot of shows. Charlie makes like loads of content, and there's no question that Charlie Kirk is a provocateur. But Charlie is also someone that I use as an example of whether you agree with him or not. You have to recognize that he's authentic and dedicated. He's not pretending. This is what he really believes in. This is what he really cares about. He's not posturing. He's not trying to make money. Although I'm sure he is making money, he's a Christian and a Republican, and turning point is his sort of raison d'etre and life's work. And I think that when something like this happens, and it's literally happened in the last couple of minutes, even if you're seeing this 24 or 48 hours later, what's worth remembering is that we're in such a contentious time that the kind of rhetoric and vitriol that we all, to some degree, engage in online, which becomes to a degree performative. People use rhetoric all the time, take grand positions, use casually words like that person should be killed or whatever. And even Charlie's, prove me wrong stance, he's a kind of a person who enjoys combative discourse. But the assumption, of course, is that that is within reason, and certainly isn't something that's going to lead to him getting shot. I saw the foot. Because there's so much hysteria and craziness, like just in online spaces. When I've heard like sort of someone posted Charlie Kirk's been shot, I was like, he'll have been shot at. Someone's fired a gun, and then I watched it. Whoa, he's been hit by a bullet.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, but like, please God, by the time we're doing this, it's not posthumous, and we're talking about God rest his soul. I pray that Charlie Kirk doesn't die, and if there's anything that we can, that you and I can talk about, perhaps that what we can consider, Dave, is how do we contribute to escalate tension? I mean, even Charlie Kirk doing events like this is taking into territory where he knows he's going to experience opposition in order to have interesting conversations, which he's brilliant at. and should be able to safely do. But now we're discussing, he's been shot. So, like, what are we supposed to
Right.
learn from that? Maybe we all need to calm it down a little bit with the amplification of the conflict and opposition in your country.
Yeah, I mean, this is a particularly weird one for us because we do this for a living. We're supposed to talk about these things, but we do both know him. We've been part of these, for about a
Mm,
year. For about a year and a half, I did these events through Turning Point with Charlie and Candace. It was the three of us all the time, and we had police escorts and fire alarms pulled, and people threatening us and throwing things at us, and had somebody dump a hot coffee on me, and like all of these things. I'm sure you've been
mm.
through a lot of these things too. It's a little hard to do the self-analysis just as this is breaking. You and I think actually in this space are pretty good at not raising tensions all the time. We do fall into stuff. Oh, the left does this or this, that. Like we all get caught in that. As someone that talks for a living, you have to use shorthand
Mm.
every now and again. But I think, and you sort of said this. I mean, the broader point, and again, all we can do right now is pray. Like, what else is there that you could possibly do than pray for Charlie? I mean, I saw the video. He was hit either here or in the neck, or it does not look good. But beyond that, it seems to me that you have to be able to say basically whatever the hell you want to say without being killed,
Yeah,
without being
of
threatened.
course.
And this is the crux of what we've come up against for so long. Like 10 years ago, when I was amongst a small group of people that were talking about why safe spaces didn't make sense and why trigger warnings didn't make sense, and this thing of calling everyone a Nazi, why it didn't make sense. And almost
Mm.
we had all the New York Times, all these things always telling us how awful we were and we were making a mountain out of a molehill and it's not real. But my fear with all of that was, well, what is going to happen when you take a generation, 10 years, and it's really more than that. You take an entire generation or two or three generations of young people, and then they're so afraid of ideas, and you tell them the earth is going to end in 12 years, and you tell them that the
Mm.
country is fundamentally racist. Like, you do all of these things, then you add the gender part of it. Then you add just all of the craziness of social media and doom scrolling. Like, we basically created this like stew that it's not like as shocking as it was when I got a text about it first, as shocking as it was, it's also not surprising. Can something be shocking and not surprising at the same time? I think so
Yeah,
because that's
yeah.
how I feel about this.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, in fact, that's exactly the way I described it. When Amy Winehouse died of,
Yeah,
drug-related complications, let's
yeah.
say, it was shocking, but also not surprising. And I reckon that if you think about it, everything that happens in the news, we have to have a kind of a take on it, and we sort of pick a side. And you see how whether it's the Cracker Barrel logo or or Tesla cars, literal commodities come into the machine, and we have to take a position. Is this good for my side or bad for my side? And even with something really serious like this, you have to. I think this is where it takes me to. Like, I know Charlie Kirk from doing a few podcasts with him, and what I think about him is I think he's really interesting bloke. I call him like the right wing Rain Man. Like, he's got this kind of like sort of autistic kind of quality to him, but he's ultra smart and ultra sincere, and he's a man of God. He obviously antagonizes a lot of people, and he obviously deliberately antagonizes a lot of people. But what I suppose this makes you consider is, oh, wow, that antagonism is being seen as something that warrants a violent response.
Right. Right. So what do we do with that? Again, this feels crazy to be talking about this just as this is happening. Like, we're like, tragedy. They say comedy is tragedy plus time. There's nothing funny about this. But like we're sort of like, like we're like narrating the end of the world. That's what it feels like to me in some
Mm,
weird way, which is a strange thing to
yeah.
do. Um, at all of these events that I would do with Charlie, yeah, like it was also different back then, just the culture and things have changed, of course. But like, of course, a portion of it, when they name what was the prove me wrong, it's slightly antagonistic. This is in no way blaming Charlie or anyone else. There's one person who should be blamed. That's the person who pulled the trigger here, which I did just see a picture of, but let's just let that be the person who did this. But of course, there's an antagonistic nature to all of this. But the exchange that you have in a free society is there's going to be some antagonism. between people, and that's the only way that ideas are going to get out there. And once you start, look, I guess the best way you could frame this is, look what happened 6 months ago with that Luigi Mangione, this kid who decided to execute a healthcare executive on the streets of New York. Now, it doesn't matter what his physical problems were. He had some back problems that I guess he wasn't happy with his coverage. It doesn't matter what you think about healthcare or universal healthcare or premiums or anything else. You can't start assassinating people. Like, once a society gives an inch to that, and that's one of the other reasons I've been so critical of the left, because they've been so tacitly endorsing violence and get in their face and don't give them a minute's peace and all of those things. And then you wonder what would people do if you gin them up enough. Did you see, Russell, I think it was 2 days ago, as this story out of Charlotte is developing with this young, the 23-year-old girl who was murdered in cold blood. Did you see the Van Jones thing on CNN?
No. What did
So
Van Jones say? I know the story, but I
so
don't know what Van Jones said.
so it's actually kind of crazy, and I played it twice on my show in the last 2 days, because basically they were that woman, what's her name, who hosts the show on CNN, Abby Phillips is the host, and she basically started the segment by saying that this murder of this young woman is basically giving fodder to people like Charlie Kirk. They specifically brought up Charlie's name. That means a producer told her to say that. She didn't just magically come up with that at the 8 p.m. hour. They wanted to somehow connect it to someone like Charlie. And then Van Jones basically said something to the effect of, well, there's no reason to think this had anything to do with racism, but people like Charlie want that. But then, of course, the video leaked from the light rail where the guy who committed the murder said twice, I got that white girl. So just in the last 48 hours, the level of rhetoric that had been ramped up against Charlie was exacerbated, was rocket fuel was put on that. And then somebody tried to shoot Charlie today. So no, not tried to. Somebody shot Charlie today. Obviously, if something breaks while we're doing this, you guys let me know.
Until we're all exhausted by trying to be right about this stuff, I think that it will continue to escalate. Why would we be surprised? Someone shot the president. Of course, like, someone with significantly less efficient security than a president is vulnerable to that. And I reckon, Dave, that it's weird, isn't it? Because you sort of think, oh, well, that could happen to me. I'm a person in the public eye that sort of says stuff, so it could happen. But actually, it has happened to Charlie now. And your point that he's become a kind of token of like extreme right wing in left wing circles, you can use
Right,
the name Charlie
he's like
Kirk.
the avatar for them. Yeah.
Yeah, you can use it like that. But now, in a way, what you and I have to do, and perhaps the left will have to do, is like, well, actually, Charlie's an effective campaigner, an activist, and public performer in the within the forum that he operates in. But he's also like a person, and now we've seen that he's vulnerable, mortal. Perhaps at this point, because it's like literally sort of 20 minutes ago, he might die as a result of those wounds, or Charlie Kirk's life might never be the same. We don't know anything at all about the consequences of that, so we can only really attempt to understand the kind of environment that you and I, as online pundits, the kind of shock jocks of our time, how are we participating in this? I suppose Charlie's different as well in that he is explicitly political, i.e. he's raising money, he's advocating for the voting machines that are used, he's getting involved. Charlie Kirk, he's an effective campaigner.
It's interesting. You're right. We have to think about that. It's something I think about a lot. It's something that when I was off for August, it's like what I'm thinking about. And if I think about the show, what I'm thinking about is how do I do it better? And by better, I mean in a way that will, I always like when people laugh at the show, right? Like they think it's funny and light and whatever. But it's like, how do we de-escalate the craziness? I don't, as I said a moment ago, like I don't want to just narrate for the next 20 years of my life the end of the world. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, every year it got worse. I narrated it. Okay, fine. Like I would prefer not to do that. I think part of the problem here is it's very, with the forces that seem to be on the march and the amount of institutional stuff that they took from us and cultural stuff that they took from us and all of those things, with all of those forces on the march, it's hard to de-escalate. Like when you talk about these people whose ideas are so bad or so wrong, the communist that wants to run New York City or whatever, I don't want anyone to shoot him, obviously. no one should ever do that. But he has horrible ideas. Well, how do we talk about those horrible ideas without at least a degree, either pure anger, right? You can do it out of anger and righteous indignation, or you could maybe do what you and I are pretty good at. You can do it with a little humor. That would be okay. But no matter how you do it, it seems like the thing just kind of continues. I don't know how you get out of that. Maybe that's just a function of where we're at in human society now because of technology and everything else.
I reckon with limitless grace, that what maybe we could focus on is the fact that amongst his other explicitly declared positions, Charlie Kirk is a Christian. And the position of being a Christian is one of non-judgment and is of grace and love and tolerance. So when you and I are talking about Mamdani, I know that you're a Jew, Dave, and I'm a new Christian. I would say, like, okay, instead of me approaching the subject of Mamdani in a way that's mocking or ridiculing or deliberately emphasizing things that I don't agree with, maybe I'll approach this as a person that doesn't agree with his political position, with the best attempt to understand why he's become successful that I can offer, and do it, not trying to be entertaining, trying to be loving and appreciative. That is something that you and I could literally do.
Right. Like that, there's a way to do probably more of that. And then, of course, there's the Oscar Wilde. If you want to tell people the truth, you better, make them laugh. Otherwise, they'll kill you. So, like, there's also a
That's tattooed
reason.
on my arm, Dave. I have that
Is it
tattooed
literally?
on my arm. Yes, literally, that's tattooed along my arm there.
Wow. So, well, there's the point. There's the point,
Mm.
right? Like you want sometimes the mockery, sometimes I think the mockery of some of these people is actually the only tool to de-escalate it, because to constantly try to give them either the benefit of the doubt for age-old ideas that are terrible or whatever, like you'll just follow them down the rabbit hole of, it'll just be endless. They'll keep winning and you'll just keep trying to turn the other cheek in some sense. And yet I understand, I understand the inclination to want to do that too. I don't know that, look, this is why we're all different. This, I suppose, is the beauty of humanity. We'll all take attack at this differently. The conclusion that you come to on how you want to approach this may be slightly different than the one I come to, and that you and I can always slog through this the best we can. Well, that's why I love you. Like that's the thing.
Yeah, well, that is actually something we can rely on, and something that we don't spend enough time in because it's kind of cloying and sentimental and don't seem somehow worthy of, like, your wisecracking persona or my British somewhat surreal approach to communication. But what when I was talking, I spoke to Laura Loomer yesterday, and like when I was speaking to her, she's a person who takes extreme positions and is a provocateur. She's a sort of a candidate for this kind of attention and potentially those kind of consequences. I suppose to a degree we all are. We all have people go online. There'll be people now doing jokes about Charlie Kirk. Oh, I guess we proved him wrong. There'll be
Yeah.
people doing, like, of course they will. And why wouldn't? And I suppose the only thing that we can pay attention to is, well, how do we respond if people, when we could potentially score points and choose not to, when we could double down refusing to. So what I feel about it in the moment is I do feel an inclination to pray for him and to pray for the people that are actually affected. In fact, I heard a brilliant thing when Kobe Bryant died in the helicopter
Yeah.
crash. The
I'll
brilliant
never forget that
preacher,
day.
yeah, this man Michael Beckwith was who's a brilliant preacher in LA, was actually in his sermon. He's not a Christian. He's sort of like a non-denominational preacher there in LA. A lot of people attend the Agape Church. Kobe died during his sermon, and when he had affirmed that it was true, he announced it to the congregation, and there was a gasp from the congregation. And he goes, "Before you all go there, remember there are people that are actually directly affected by this. He's got a widow, he's got family members. So let's bring our attention to them, because in the final analysis, it's non-local." So much of what goes on online in particular, Dave, I think becomes a kind of performance. You say, you know, there's going to be a third world war, you know, this will be the end of civilization. You recognize that in order to get clicks and views, you emphasize here, you cut there, you thumbnail this way, you title that way. This is a business. We're at the front end of the communication business, pioneering in the new territory online. Well, actually, I suppose what we should recall is that there are going to be real life consequences to it. That's one thing. We should recognize that while all of us are discussing these issues, none of us are saying, do you know, is there going to be a way that if New York wants to have a communist mayor, maybe New York should be able to have a communist mayor? Maybe we need to look at devolving power. Maybe we should stop squabbling in the established sandbox and start recognizing there are some people who want to give gender therapy to their kids and other people who want to raise them Amish. What are we going to do? All shoot each other till only one idea remains?
Right.
You
Well,
know?
there is something to be said about live and let live. I think largely the issue is that a certain set of people are okay with that and a certain set of people aren't. And what do you do when you say, okay, live and let live, have what you have, it's over there. But when somebody wants what's yours or wants to encroach or whatever, I'll tell you a story that you're going to love about Kobe. A few days, I think it was literally a day or two before he died. I lived in LA at the time. And the Lakers have a channel. It's like an actual channel. That's the Lakers channel. I don't know if he had a show or whatever, but I hadn't seen him in a while. And I flicked past it and I saw him and he looked great. When I stopped the channel, because I've always loved Kobe, you know, I love basketball, but he looked great. It was really striking to me. He had a beard. He just like looked healthy. And you know, when you see someone that just like looks the best of themselves, and he was wearing a really sharp suit. And I watched for a minute and then I changed the channel. The next day I was waiting to go to the LAX, to the airport. And just as I was about to get into my Uber, I saw the tweet or whatever that Kobe had died, that about the helicopter crash. I immediately teared up. You know, I'm not like the most emotional guy, but like teared up. I've never met him, you know, whatever. I get into the Uber and it's a young black driver. He's probably late 20s, early 30s or so. He was hysterically crying, bawling like the most you can imagine somebody crying, like a child. And I got in and I said to him, I wasn't in a rush. It was really early. I said, listen, I know what's going on here. Like, we don't have to go anywhere. You want to just sit here and talk about Kobe for a while. I'm getting chills up my spine as I'm telling you this. And for about a half hour, we just told stories about Kobe, from the 83-point game to the, you know, coming back during that season when he was on trial all the time, blah, blah, blah. And then he kind of was just working through it. I mentioned that sort of for that part, but really it was the previous part that I mentioned, that I saw this. I happened to stop on a channel thinking, man, this is a guy living his best life. And then I think it was literally the next day he was dead. And that tells you how tenuous this whole thing is.
Yeah.
Do we have any new news since? Yeah. The guys are going to text me and you something, Russell. We'll just watch it on the fly and then we'll decide how we want to continue.
I saw the video of him being shot. It's disturbing, man. Obviously.
Yeah. All right. They're gonna send us something here.
Oh
God. All right.
Me may not be coming back from that.
All right, Russell, I think this is what we're going to do. We're going to stop now. I think that was cathartic to some extent. And okay, let's end the show here. We don't have to edit anything out. It's all good. Let's leave it there for now, and let's just put this up as raw as it is. We can even put it up today if we want. And let's just leave it there.
Hold on a minute. Let me pray.
Yeah.
Bloody hell. I mean, if there's anything that we can genuinely and authentically learn from this, Lord, will you show us what it is? Is there a way that we can reach out to one another differently? Because the brutality of that, the final video in particular, which will soon have millions and millions of views, and some people will be joking and some people will be crying, and all of us will be trying to deploy this in some way for our own benefit and advantage. Can you show us what you would have us learn from this? And if this has fatal consequences, please, Lord, comfort those that are genuinely affected by it, that are closest to him, and may we learn the lesson lessons that we need to learn from this, because remember, all over the world, less high-profile people are continually suffering and dying in ways that may not impact us directly because of the associations and connections and rhymes and resonances, but death is inevitable. Lord, let us appreciate life and let us find love with one another. Let us celebrate the beautiful things in life: marriage, togetherness, unity, and children. And Lord, let us please find a way beyond this constant and incessant blizzard of entertainment, vitriol, and rhetoric. And please, participants like me and Dave, let's do what we can do to be valuable guardians of something that goes beyond continually escalating these tensions. In the name of Jesus, please look after dear Charlie and his family. Amen.